Hi, everyone. I want to apologize because I have a bump in the road, but I am just trying to overcome it. And I am trying out, I had to go and pick my son up from school. So I had to come on and do the show a little different. And because of doing that, I lost service. So I'm going to try this again and see what happens. So if you can hear me and see me, that would be amazing. My guest is Marty, and I'm waiting for Marty to join. Again, I apologize for the technology issue and this nice hiccup that I had, but you know, I would not be a good host if I didn't adapt and overcome this hiccup. So as soon as she appears, we will start. Um, I was told that she was on here before me, which is a good possibility. So we're just gonna wait and see. In the meantime, how is everyone doing? I hope all of you are having a great day. And it's going a little less chaotic than my day is. So hello, 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 Michelle. Can you hear me, Michelle? Because I know nobody can hear me the last time that I tried. So we're gonna try this one more time while I'm on the move. Oh, here we go. Thank you. All right.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I can't hear
Yeah.
you.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so
What's
much
wrong?
for working over.
Volume. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, let's party.
Oh, again, I'm glad that you are my guest today because this was a bit chaotic, but we worked through it. Here we are.
Yeah,
Go us.
no
So
worries.
thank you so much for being a part of Empowering You and coming on today to share your story with us. So if you don't mind, I really want to make sure that you have most of the airtime to share your amazing story. So if you want to go ahead and just tell everyone a little bit about who Marty was and some of the things that Marty has done and how it empowered you to be who you are today.
Okay. Well, my name is Martha Maria Smith. That's my official name on my birth certificate, which I've never found yet. But I was born in Colombia, South America. And at the age of 5, my parents decided to move to New York. My dad was an electrical engineer, and mom was a housewife. So we moved. And that was the first time that I had been exposed to a different culture because I had only heard Spanish. But now I'm learning English. And because I'm learning English, I became an interpreter for everybody, and especially my mom. And I was like, we'd go to the doctor, and especially the gynecologist. She'd say, "Tell him this, and this," and I'm like, "What are you asking me to do?" So I knew from way back then that my life was going to be comical. It was going to be an adventure, and sooner or later I was going to have to figure out how to do things on my own terms because at the age of 7 mom decided to she must have been having a bad day, and I didn't see it as a bad day back then, but I do now. That she said, "You are a mistake. We didn't want girls. We didn't want girls at all, and you came and you were a mistake." And I'm like, "Well, what do I do now? I don't have a choice in the matter. I didn't ask to be born." And then from there on out, I was like a third class citizen in the family. Because we lived in South America, we had maids for every reason and season. And I was taught from a very early age to cook, to clean, and to do everything. Now I know why I was taught those things, to replace the maid when we didn't have them. We moved 49 times in my lifetime. Okay. Those
Oh,
49 times involved Venezuela, Colombia, all up and down the East Coast, and as far out as Arizona. God had a bigger purpose for me. He was training me. I didn't know that back then. And I decided to rebel against my own family by joining the Air Force. The recruiters came in, and I'm like, ooh, I'm going window shopping for the best looking uniform. I loved the Marines, and I'm like, oh, but I didn't like the people that were there representing. I was like, nah, no, they look like brutes. I don't want no part of that. So the Air Force, I said, I like to fly. I can do that. I didn't want to be Navy wavy and all this. And so I started just making a decision that would change my life for the rest of my life. And I didn't even know it. I signed the contract because I was already a year older than most high school graduates, 19, because I got left back in kindergarten not knowing Spanish, which was to me hysterical. How could you not know your native tongue? Well, I don't know. It's probably because it's moved so many times in its lifetime. And and then I joined the Air Force. It was the best thing I did because I gained a taste of independence. It was the super job. I love what I was doing. To me, basic training was a cakewalk. Why? Because I had had such a strict upbringing with my parents. So I was like, don't I need to be doing something while I'm waiting on something else to happen? Because that's how I was doing at home. So it was really, to me, it was an adventure. Everybody was bummed out and homesick, and I was their little cheerleader because I find comedy in everything that was happening. And then the first thing the recruiter said when we got to the basic training, don't volunteer. Don't volunteer for anything. And the drill instructor said, how many of you are an artist? And of course, I had given up a scholarship in art because my parents didn't want me to move in New York. So I raised my hand. I didn't know it was going to be the best thing I could choose because I ended up drawing a mural and writing the Pledge of Allegiance on the basic training wall for the whole time I was in basic training. I didn't have to do KP. I didn't have to scrub toilets with a toothbrush. Nothing. I was set. So I got out of there. I fell in love with this guy from Austria, and we were going to get married. Meanwhile, I got a phone call from mom and dad both saying that your father's gonna he's sick, he's got peritonitis, you need to come home. The the fiance that I had, he's like, choose between them and you, because he already knew the back history of my family not getting along with me, not listening to me, treating me like a slave is what I all I ever heard. So I was like, no, don't ask me to choose, but I went anyway. I got to Florida, I saw a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken and my dad sitting by the pool, and I was devastated. Like, no, this was a ruse to get me home so I could continue being the maid to cook and clean. Well, meanwhile, they did me a favor because the guy that I was engaged to didn't become a marriage because I didn't think it was right for him to tell me to choose my family. So after that, oh, and before I signed the contract, or after I signed the contract, Dad found out. He says, we're moving from New York to Florida. I said, oh no, I became an attorney, instant attorney, and said, you're not going to, you're breaking the law. It's a federal offense. I'm not going AWOL because you don't want me to go. So I started getting the guts to stand up for myself in a way or sorts. Well, we moved to Florida anyway, but I got a friend of mine her mama bought me the ticket, and I said, as soon as I get paid, I'll give it back. She was all good with that. I flew out to New York today, but my dad had tried to hit me to get engaged with someone else. It hit me up to be arranged marriage with the guy that he worked with. This guy lived next to Burt Reynolds in Jupiter, Florida, and he was rich, and he wanted me to be his queen and pregnant, barefoot and pregnant, no, all the things I didn't want to do.
Yeah. So I just want to go back real quick because I wasn't clear. What happened when you went home after you found out your dad was sick?
Oh, he was faking it so I could stay home, but I had no choice because I couldn't go back to where I was gonna be married in Arizona. That's what after I got out of the Air Force, and I got hurt on in the Air Force, but I'm an honorably discharged veteran because of it, and all that just brought on a whole bunch more of emotional luggage because I was told I was a mistake in the beginning, and then now, oh, I was gonna go big in the Air Force. I was probably even gonna become a pilot, and it didn't happen. So I started downing myself again. So every failure that I would, see would just add on to all that emotional luggage that was piling in my head, and I couldn't see any visions, any dreams, nothing. So I went back home to Florida, And I got into school. I was going to go to the university, and as soon as I got the opportunity to go to the university, mom and dad decided to move. So every time I would find something, there was always a move. Well, we ended up going to North Carolina, and I'm like, I don't want to go with no cows in a tobacco field. I want to be here in Florida in West Palm Beach, where I'm already going to school and this that. No, so we went to we went to North Carolina. I got 3 jobs. I applied. I was working Word Perfect or word processing back then. The school. I don't even think that's even a course anymore. But I was wanting to be a receptionist. I didn't. It wasn't me, but I just wanted to do something. I was an assistant bartender and an assistant manager in the bowling alley, and lo and behold, my husband to be shows up. I met him in May. We got engaged in August and got married the following February. But before I met him, I had already sworn off men because I'd been engaged twice, to the one that the dad had hooked me up with, and the other one that said, no, pick your family or me. So this third time is like, I'm going to join the Peace Corps. I'm going to go have, serve the world. I don't care. I just need a shelter and some food. I don't care where it is. I don't care about money because we lived in the lap of luxury while I was in South America, in Colombia and all that. And I didn't want to. I didn't want any part of it. It's like if I got away from it, I wouldn't be affected and be as ugly as I thought those people were. Well, lo and behold, come to find out, I got married to my husband. Everything was great, but I got hurt when I was about 30. I got hurt. I tore my ACL, my knee. And the next thing I know, that caused a barrage of a whole bunch of surgeries. And I ended up having several surgeries that it's like driving on a chassis with a flat tire, and your body just doesn't, it starts wearing down on one side because you're trying to favor the other, and then the next thing you know it, you can't walk. I atrophied my muscles when I re-injured myself. I had decided when we moved to North Carolina, I decided that my husband and I decided we were going to move to Charleston, and that was great because I went to the medical university in Charleston and became a radiation therapist. Teaching or learning that career taught me how to deal with cancer patients. It taught me how to live, because those babies, those children that were suffering cancer didn't want to be there, but they wanted to remember smiles. They wanted to remember good happenings, and I loved the patient care aspect of it. So I would, take them in and try to make them laugh or smile. And I was watching that I could be resilient, and I didn't know that back then. Well, we moved from North Carolina, from Charleston back to North Carolina, because I had gotten a call. All this emotional garbage had gone on with my family, but Mama was in a pickle because she needed help, but she didn't know how. So she got a neighbor to call me saying that my dad had had a heart attack, and I had already had flashbacks from the time I went to Florida. It's like, is this going to be the same thing all over again? Well, it wasn't. He was actually in the hospital, and I showed up at the hospital. I didn't show up home because my mom and I hadn't spoken for 8 years, and for the first time in my life, and this is a beautiful thing, for the first time in my life, my dad greeted me like a father. And that was the best thing that I could have chosen to do, because I wanted my father. I wanted a father the whole time. And he was always moving. He was always constantly finding getting away from the house, I think, but he was also very enslaved into wanting to provide for us the best that he could do to try to match all the status that he had in South America, but it was impossible here. It's not the same thing. So he got out of the hospital 3 months later. I stayed in the hospital the whole time, and for the first time in my life, I had a good time with my father in the worst of conditions, in the ICU, the CCU, and all the U's in between. But somehow or another, Dad would find the sense of humor, and I had my sense of humor, and together we ended up being best of buddies. Mama, Mama didn't want no part of that. I think she was more frightened because Dad had the Alzheimer's, and she didn't have the husband that she had had all that time before. So she was like jealous of my attitude with dad. But that's what Alzheimer's people do. They find, they find the person that isn't questioning why this, why aren't you doing this the way you do, and they don't feel demeaned. But it's not because mama didn't know how to do it. She just didn't know how to face it. So now I'm starting to see all the puzzles of the pieces come together. But when it was happening, it was hell. And I didn't want to leave the only place I had lived for 18 years on my, and called home. Charleston was home for me. But my husband said, if you don't settle with whatever's going on with your parents, you're never going to survive the guilt. And he was exactly right. So by the grace of God, I say, because I went back to my faith. I saw the movie The Passion, and that stirred up in me. I had been raised a Catholic, but the faith didn't make sense to me because we'd leave the parking lot and everybody was back to the same thing that we had been before we got there. But they talked pretty in the church, and I wanted to stay in the church. I even thought about becoming a nun at one time because it was so chill. But see, I was always looking. I was always looking for an option. I didn't want to stay in the same rut, and I think that's what motivated me internally to keep going. Wherever I got, I was going to find a way. Well, okay, all that fast forward, I got hurt. I ended up working at a nuclear power plant where my husband was also working because I had applied for the job, for the 3 jobs I was telling you about. I had applied when I got to North Carolina. And we were double income, no kids, and we were making a killing because we were working 7 12-hour shifts. We didn't care. We didn't care if we were going to retire at 40 no matter what. Well, God had another version. Is I got hurt. I tore my ACL again, and everything just stirred back up. And I've had numerous surgeries, 27 surgeries. So I can't even remember what happened. All I know is that it was showing me that my husband was a true partner because he didn't abandon me as damaged goods. That also showed me that I had value, that I was worth something. So little by little, I started seeing that things weren't all that bad, that I was very blessed. Not many people get an opportunity to move so many times and learn so many things from so many cultures. Being bilingual has helped me immensely because came the pandemic. I decided to lose 70 pounds and 70 inches, and that wasn't the end of it. I decided to become a personal trainer at 62. And
Oh, wow.
the reason why I became a personal trainer was to try to prove to myself that my body wasn't damaged, and it wasn't. It was just my mind was fogging me. But yes, I had a lot of injuries, and God wanted me to get over it, recuperate, and press on and do something differently. Well, during the personal training, here comes the pandemic. And I was like, okay, I don't have a job. What am I going to do? I'm not. And I was getting flashbacks because I had been in a wheelchair from all the injuries before, and I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to go back to being watching TV, trying to find a channel that would talk to me and I would be happy. Well, the doctor decided to plant a spine stimulator in me, which made me part robotic. I already
Oh,
had all the metal in me from the knees, all in the ankles. I've had both ankles reconstructed, both knees reconstructed, my back, you name it. I've had it reconstructed. But God was tearing me apart so He could put me back together in a better way.
yeah. I'm so happy to hear that through all of that, you were able to, you know, dig down deep and find like who you really are, and find the willpower to keep fighting and, to become the amazing woman that you are today,
Thank you.
despite what has happened to you and the horrible things that were said and, the untruth things that were, told to you. So, I mean, that's very like empowering, and I'm just blown away at what you are doing now with your life. So you said that you are a
I
trainer.
Yeah, I became a trainer, and then all of a sudden, this little 3-day workshop about writing a book came about, and I was like, well, I'm bored. I don't want to watch news anymore. Let me do it. Let me do it. So I signed up, and the first day I would like, I'm an avid photographer. I didn't know that either. I discovered that along the way. I'm an avid photographer, and I took a picture, and I was like, "Oh, this is so cool! A little weed growing out of the concrete. That looks like me." I just said that to myself. Well, the book thing came right about the time I was taking the picture and doing that. All of a sudden, that's my book cover. That became my book cover. The title was Resilience Nourishes the Soul. Because of my 70-pound, 70-inch transformation, I had decided I was going to go global. And I started promoting the thing in Europe, the product, Isogenics. And all of a sudden, I started becoming a networker in Spain and all this. And everybody was like, Marty, you can this and you can that. Again, these people, where do they get all these ideas? How come I don't have them? But I didn't believe in myself. Well, I took the book. The second day I had the chapters, the outline, and the third day I started writing the book. I wrote that book it published in 2022, December 2022. January 2023, I had already received my first award for resilience. Halfway through the summer, they said, you're nominated for a humanitarian award of resilience. And I'm like, a Women of Heart. And I said, whoa, I think you have the wrong Smith. I don't I don't know what you're talking about. And they said, no, we've nominated you. I said, well, it looks good on my resume. And I just dropped it. September, they called me. They said, no, you won the award. You have to come to England to pick it up. And I'm like, oh my God, this is getting real. This is getting real. I translated my English book into Spanish because of that little thing. Meanwhile, in Ireland, I had already been part of 2 anthologies, and I wrote chapters, and one is Grateful Hearts, and the other one is Ripples of Grace. And all of it has everything to do with my resilience. And I'm like, wow, no, this is a career. What are you talking about? You've been building up all your resume your whole life. Start working on it. So then I said, okay, we weren't able to have children. I said, I want to leave this world behind a little better than I found it. I want to leave a legacy of hope. And because of going back to the faith, I have been part of a Sunday school teacher in the Catholic schools for 35 years. That gave me that satisfaction that I was teaching the youth. They are now responding to me for years. I have been keeping up for years with these people, and most mamas that belong to that kid say, that kid loves you more than me. I said, no, I'm just their friend that grew up with them, and they are now becoming Sunday school teachers. So it's like, I see that I can pass and empower the stuff that has happened to me. I can empower other people with it. It's just a matter of taking a second look at your life, looking at yourself and saying, okay, what do I have? What do I need? What do I want? And then you make your list and you narrow down all the things that kept repeating themselves, because I did a lot of journaling too. And I started seeing that, wow, the first exercise that helped me immensely was write 10 adjectives to describe yourself. And I was like, I don't know. Because I couldn't answer, I started discovering that I didn't love myself. I didn't appreciate or value myself. I thought I was being arrogant, and I always thought connected that loving yourself was arrogance. Like I'm all that. And really and truly, it's not. It's, if you can't love yourself, how can you love anyone? How can you give it to anyone if you don't know how to process it? And in that, I discovered that I had a whole bunch of stuff hidden in me: photography, author, public speaker. I've been in conferences already. They're talking to me next week about maybe possibly doing a movie. So it's like, it's mind blowing, but it's definitely God showing me you just didn't know how to put all that you've had together. And that's why I want to share with the world too, that the coaching of how to get to where it got me. Even though I will say that half of the people that I know have never suffered as much trauma and drama as I have. So if I could do it, anyone can.
Yeah. So with all of that, your words are just really inspiring. I appreciate how you're, taking in you know, the things that have happened to you in your life and still just wanting to put good out there in the world. So thank you so much for, you know, being that person. Um, what would you tell people are listening right now, like that might be going through something hard or, you know, just struggling because, you know, suicide, unfortunately, is like at a huge high rate. And it's, you know, because the younger generation and stuff like that, they don't know how to deal with maybe some of their emotions, or they feel like they're alone in their emotions. You know,
I know,
they
and
don't
that
become.
I can relate to that, and I will say that I didn't know or knowingly know that there was people there around me trying to be those little angels. I call them earth angels that reach out to you, and you kind of like don't relate to it, because if you've had a rough, go of a family life, then you don't know, you don't trust, you want to protect yourself. And I had built a rock hard wall around my heart, and it's like, no, you're not coming into my territory now. I had, but jumbled that in my head, saying if I protect myself, then I don't need to be near anybody. I can handle this on my own. No, no man is an island. And I definitely know that I've been everywhere, and there is a lot of help that came along the way. I just never noticed it. And the reason I never noticed it was all those limiting beliefs were packing me a blinder, and I couldn't see any vision. Now I know why I couldn't dream. Now I know why I couldn't desire anything, because I kept repeating that narrative. You're a mistake. You can't do anything. Look at you. You were in the Air Force. You were almost a doctor in radiation therapy, and this, that, and the other. You haven't amounted to beings. But the pandemic came, and I changed that. And I wrote the book, and that was a catharsis. So I recommend to people, first of all, if you don't have anyone to talk to, write. Write down. It's a good way to dump out that brain that's blocking the things that you can't see. Ask people. Seek professional help. Listen to all the information there is out on YouTube now about mental disorders, about suicide, about depression. I was severely depressed. I had psychiatric treatment, okay? Because if I was in a wheelchair, I was definitely no good at anything. But that wheelchair needed to happen for me to take a look at myself and say, you're not going this route anymore. You're going to change your life. You're going to find the good in something. You just haven't found it. You don't know how. Instruct yourself, educate yourself, talk to other people, express your feelings. If you don't express your feelings, you're just dumping more into that brain that doesn't see the things that are you're capable of doing. And if you surround yourself with non-toxic people, boy, do they point out the things in you that you don't even see in yourself, which I used to call them fools. They don't know what they're talking about. They must be on drugs or drunk. I don't think that they're looking at the right Smith. But that was just me, my instant reaction. And now I appreciate all those people that stepped up to the plate for me. I thank every one of them for me being alive. And I appreciate the people that have stepped up and asked for help, because I see the transformation. I see them. And I'm still pinching myself, saying, I didn't see any of this coming. I didn't know I could be so good. I didn't know I could help so many people. I want to be able to help the world in what little drops of hope that I can give. And that's all I really want. I don't care about being a millionaire. I don't care about this or the other, because I've lived all that. But the real treasure, the real value, is you feeling good about yourself, you leaving a legacy behind, and you taking care of those around you, and being heard and expressing your love, because that's how you become happy. That's how you learn joy. That's how you sleep at night rested with inner peace and faith. faith is important. I don't care what you choose, but you have to have something that grounds you and say there's something bigger than me. And however that theology goes for you, work on it. Work on it. Find other people to get together and discuss the same things that bother you, and you'll see that there's a way. You'll find a way. Whew.
Thank you, Mark. I know that it's not easy to go and like share your story and talk about it, especially, you know, with a live audience and people that you don't know. So thank you so much for opening up and doing that with us. I truly appreciate that. Um,
I just want people not to give up, and there's so much goodness out in the world. We just need to open our eyes and open our heart, because we all can make it together. It's not you're here all by yourself and no one understands you, no one hears you. No, that's what we tell ourselves. Those are the little limiting lies that crush our hopes and our dreams. Stop saying negative things to yourself, and start looking for the good in you, and you'll see. If you can write down 10 adjectives and describing yourself in a positive way, you're on your way to finding much more things, like I did.
Marty, do you remember what it is that you wrote about yourself?
Yeah, that I felt like no one was hearing me, because I didn't know my native tongue, because I was kind of like a weird awkward individual wherever they took me, because we had a lot of social events and everything, but I couldn't. All I could do was look at the top of my feet. That's what I remember most. I just looked at the top of my feet, but I was always looking down. Now you don't catch me looking down. I'll look up, in front of me or up above, because I know that's another thing that I've noticed, that the transformation has made me look at the opposite of what I used to look at. And so I used to write some really bad things. Like my mama wouldn't let me go out on dates. She wouldn't let me go to a movie with friends, and the friends were short lived because we moved so many times. So I didn't have anybody to bond with. And I also have a younger brother. He's 8 years younger than me, so I was his mama. So as far as I knew in my life, I had already been a housewife without the fringe benefit. When I met my husband, I said, "Oh, wait a minute, you want to marry me? Well, let me tell you, I've already been a housewife. Now I want the fringe benefits, and I want someone to be my partner, and we're a team." And God granted me that, because 41 years together, we've known each other 24/7, because we work businesses. And that's when you discover that, wow, okay, so life is good. You just didn't see the goodness in all of it. You just weren't focusing on all the blessings. And that's the thing, is I've had a barrage of blessings that have surrounded me. And every time I turn around and think about something else, wow, that's why that. Or, you start discovering. I say it's God laying out the missing pieces of puzzle of my life, and knowing that I do have a purpose, a passion, and a mission, and I'm in the right direction, because so far doors are opening, windows are opening, and the highway is wide open. Now, I do have to say that I have to be grounded. I have to be focused, because it's easy to say, "Oh, yes," to everything. And then you're like, no. So I'm not compromising my values. I'm not compromising my virtues. What I'm wanting to do is stay focused on the message that I'm delivering.
I love hearing that. So I know, like for me, when this all just started like coming about, and you know, I realized what I had been through was, you know, powerful for others, and helping others, you know, get through what they were going through. Um, all like there was so many interviews, so many things like that, but I know that I was very cautious on where I went with my story. Do you find yourself doing the same?
Actually, there's like I've decided that I'm not gonna. It depends on who I'm around, how intimate the conversations go. But for the most part, everything I shared in the book is an open book. I mean, it's like it defines me in many ways. It shows all my diverse ideas of how I faced everything that I was facing. But I think I live a very transparent life. I wear my heart on my sleeve now, definitely, and that's another thing that I've discovered a whole lot more community and love and sharing and because I'm getting in with the right people, because I'm not afraid of what others think. I'm expressing myself, and all the things that finally clicked in is what made me feel this way. But it takes time. It's not a overnight thing, and it's not a magic pill. You have to work on it. You have to put your effort behind it. You have to commit and and definitely take it on as this is what I want to do. This is where I'm going to be. This is where, and you start lining yourself out, and you will see. You will see progress. You'll see change. You will definitely be transformed, and it's up to you how far you want to go, because the you are a miracle, and the blessings are ill. There's no limit to the blessings. There's just everything that you do in a good way comes back to you in a huge way.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So, me being a coach and specializing with this kind of work, I know that I am very adamant that when someone is in a dark space or going through something and they feel like they can't, like to try to look at what is positive around them to try to help pull them from that. Is that something that you found yourself doing, or was it just like the wheelchair and you having that conversation with yourself that one time that brought you?
I think this is where the cancer treatment and all those patients of cancer taught me. I'm alive. I'm well. I'm walking. I'm talking. I'm seeing. I have a husband. And you start like lining all the blessings behind, and all of a sudden that list of mayhem that you thought was nothing but your life gets very small, gets very small. And then approaching all those negative things as lessons, as life skills for you to survive the next go round if it ever happens again, because life does repeat itself in a way, but it's up to us to polish it in a different way. And so I say that the most important that thing that I recognize or make people recognize in themselves is you're alive. You may not be where you want to be, you may not feel how you want to feel, but there's a reason why you're still alive. Let's find your way back to feeling love, to feeling hopeful, to feeling like you have something to contribute to the world. And we all do. That's another thing. People don't think that just because they didn't know the right person or didn't grow up in the right neighborhood that they can't share what they've lived. No, your life story is your life story. It's precious. It's amazing. You have to find that amazement in you. And if you can't find it, find someone that will find it for you. And you will survive. You are a survivor. You've overcome everything if you're still sitting here listening and talking.
Yeah, yeah, I
Where do I send the
yeah,
bill?
I agree. I 100% agree with all of that. I just love, hearing you, um, and all the wisdom that you're sharing, from, unfortunately your hard obstacles and trauma and stuff. So for me, I just want to know real quick, you said you and your dad did make amends and you were able to build a little bit of a relationship with him, but just
Yeah,
not your mom, right?
but he was taken away. He died 9 years ago. And mom, I helped her with the cancer treatment. I took them both to doctor's appointments, and I put up with a lot of it because she had dementia. And she was fighting me, but she was really fighting that dad had lost his lucidity. And I didn't know that. I thought she was just attacking me on top of everything that she had said. But that's how we see that trail and we start going to town with it because that's that emotional luggage we drag. So no, I was able to make peace with my mom. In fact, I think if she had stayed alive a little longer, she would have apologized to me directly. But she apologized to my husband. She apologized. She told all of my friends that, oh, I wish that I was an angel, that I was a saint. I said, why can't I hear it from her mouth? But I know that it was also pride, and she had it rough. She had it rough because my dad was the one that carried both of them together for 60 years. So it's like you can't just drop that out of your head and say I'll be all right, because she was very dependent on him. And I came into the picture and I took over. She tore up my power of attorney that I had over both of them. Dad ended up being in a group home of all places. I was so livid. I was mad. I was everything. I said, Mom, why would you do that? I didn't come here to abuse Dad. I came here to take care of both of you. But somehow her friend said, oh, those young people are going to put you out on the street. All they want is your house. We had our own house in Charleston. We didn't need her house. But it didn't matter. We ended up selling the house in Charleston. We had to repair the roof. We had to buy a new air conditioner. We had to remodel downstairs. Luckily, my husband taught me to be a carpenter. And we tried to put a kitchen back together. And then the living room, and there was mold that she didn't know there was. So we discovered it. Thank God it didn't kill us because it was bad. But we had to wipe the whole downstairs and redo it. So, but Mom passed away. She had developed like, I say it's kind of like a leukemia. She required blood transfusions every 3 months to the point where she didn't want it no more. But she died at home. She didn't die like my dad in a group home. She didn't die, and that I had promised my dad the day that he was getting ready to leave us. I guess he had the last rites, and I said, Dad, I promise you, whatever I have to do, I don't want Mom to suffer like you did before she goes. And sure enough, God let me keep that. And now I wish they could see me. I know they can't, but I wish I could talk to them. I wish I could talk to them and say, you just didn't know each other. You didn't know each other. You didn't know me. You didn't know all of it. I was raised to be. Okay. Your turn.
All right, Marty. Like, you can't be getting me to like crying, right? Like that's not something I do, especially on live, Marty.
Well,
Oh.
you got to let it out, and it's very healing when you do, because it's easier. And when I first started talking about this, I promise you, I was a nervous wreck. But the more I do it, the more I realize how smooth it can come out of you once you see that difference in the different perspective on how you look at things. And you start discovering all the blessings that I had missed. And that's what I'm seeing. I see a lot of good that came out of everything that I've considered vile and bad. But I'm good. I'm really good. I'm blessed. I'm happy. And I want everybody to know that you can be too. You just got to find your way. And if you don't know how, read my book or call me or we talk or whatever. We'll figure it out.
Oh, yeah. So what is it I want people to be able to know your book name? I want them, I mean, like you have such a huge heart and an amazing story. And I know that you could be a huge guide and mentor to a lot of people. So I just want to make sure the audience knows how they can get in touch with you, how they can communicate with you, you know, be
Okay.
inspired more by you.
My book is Resilience Nourishes the Soul, and it is on Amazon, or you can look on my website, martymsmith.com, and you can buy my book in both versions, English and Spanish. Also, you can follow me on Facebook. You name it, I could put it on there, or I'll put it on the comments. But I'm everywhere. I'm everywhere, making myself available to the world, and I have gone global because of my awards. So I'm bilingual as well. So if you don't speak English, I'd be happy to talk to you in español.
I mean, that is really a good thing to have, though. Like, I wish that I could like at least understand Spanish, you know what I mean, and like communicate a little bit. So I think being able to have like both and be like fluent in it is really a good thing to have.
And
Um,
I gave it up for 8 years, so I know God was going to ask me at the end of the trail, hey, what you do with that language I taught you? So now I made it alive again in me, and I still say some stuff that, and this is the reason why I left Spanish to begin with, because in Venezuela you call a fruit a name, but in Colombia it's a curse. And it, or Chile or Argentina, everyone has their own version of the Spanish that I supposedly thought was like English. Everywhere you go, it's the same English. Or granted,
yeah.
there is accents and there is dialect in different areas of the nation, but for the most part, you can communicate with English anywhere you go. And Spanish was like, "Uy, no, how could you say that? ¿Cómo se le ocurre? And I was like, I didn't say anything. I said a fruit."
A fruit. Wow. That would be complicated for sure. Like wanting to buy a fruit and asking about it, and they think you're cussing at them. That would be, yeah. I would.
How could that even come out of your mouth? And I was like, oh, well, okay, never mind. But that's just how I've also learned to adapt it. You know, I'm not perfect. Nobody is. But I'm blessed to have the ability to have all these skills at my beck and call, and use them. And I make myself understood. That's another thing I learned. That even learning, I learned French in high school, but just learning different languages. That I went to Europe and there was people that didn't speak English, they didn't speak Spanish, they didn't speak anything, and I was managing to communicate with them because of the universal language that I've learned: a smile and a hug. And that doesn't fail you anywhere you go unless you're in danger.
Yeah. 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 That might be
But for the
difficult.
most part, people accept it as friends. So.
That's great. I love that piece of advice there. Um, One more question. When you were going through the hardship, so not so much at the end, but like when you were going through things, um, where was like, did you have a good relationship with God or not so much? And did it take you realizing the strength and being like empowered and stuff for you to build that relationship with God?
I started building the relationship with God when I was in the wheelchair. Definitely. So that was 30 years after the fact. Before that, it was a nice thing to know, go to Sundays in church, but with the movie The Passion and me being in the wheelchair, I started seeing a different aspect, a spiritual aspect, I say, of not damning myself for everything that had happened. I just didn't have the right mentors, the right guidance to get through it. But I started being very compassionate and very empathetic with other people too. So I think God was helping me learn that as well. But the most important part, I say, of all that was that I learned to hold on, to hold on to something. I didn't know what I was holding on to. I knew, and I learned, definitely. I learned from long ago. Never give up. Never give up. And that is key for anybody to take in and start seeing that just because you want to give up doesn't mean you give up. You just find another way to work around what is that you want to give up on, because anything we look at head on has different angles on the sides. And sometimes all we do is look at the first, what's foremost in front of us, instead of taking a look around and saying, "Ooh, well, maybe I could do this, or maybe I could see that." And then you start becoming creative in the chaos, and that's what my next book title is: Creative Chaos Warrior, because because we do have a lot of chaos going on. Massive information getting bombarded, all different values and virtues getting turned upside down. What's right is right. It at one point in time used to be. Now what's right is wrong and what's wrong is right. And so tell me that that doesn't confuse the world even more. So you have to know how to stand on your own feet. You have to be independent that way. But if you find enough independent people, you're going to run into the people that are going to take you under your wing and help you through whatever it is that you're facing. You're not alone, and you are a miracle.
I love that. Yes, yes. And yeah, there's nothing that you have said that I have not agreed with. I know like a month ago, I was so frustrated because I was listening to someone talk about, their experience with something and like what they had went through. And there was another person that was listening and chimed in and was trying to say like what they experienced wasn't valid or like their feelings wasn't valid because they were there and that's not what happened. And so I was trying to hear like both sides of the whole thing, but what it was they just had like difference of opinion because what the other person was experiencing was the fact that people were not being nice to her. People were trying to tell her that what she was doing wasn't good, and and the other person that was trying to tell her that what she saw was not, what she felt, but that's because nobody was saying those things to her. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's like going into
that's
a room.
that's why it's so important to express yourself and also know who you're dealing with. If you don't know them, then find out. Knowing yourself is the most important priority right now. If you're facing that kind of backlash from other people, find out who you are. Find out what you like, find out what you don't like, and stick in the middle, sorting through, and you'll see what was making you block, what was making you not see, what was making you feel like crap, because that's what we got to figure out, that every one of us has that. Life is a roller coaster. It's not a bed of roses. It's not champagne caviar and, oh, I'm all done and I fixed everything. And no, no, until the day you die you're going to learn something, but at the same time you have to enjoy the many moments in life that are miracles, and that is a treasure. Enjoy the little things, the moments. They might not be very long lasting, or it's not a 5 day stay vacation, whatever, but if you just go out and enjoy nature, just nature, it's free, it's quadraphonic, it's sense around, it's everything you want it to be, and it doesn't cost you a thing. When you enjoy nature, you start noticing animals, you start noticing creatures, you start noticing a whole lot more. And you focus on that instead of all the problems that you can't sort out because you don't know what.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, did so with what we were just talking about, does your brother feel and like have any somewhat of the same feelings and experience that you had when you were younger? Because I remember you saying that your mom said that she just wanted boys. So was there like a different approach with him than there was with you? So maybe
Oh,
his.
absolutely. They were saints and could do no wrong, but because of all that, they expected me to be married for 5 years and break up because both my younger brother and my older brother got divorced after 5 years. When I didn't see that divorce or didn't hand it to them, the saying, "Hey, look, I'm divorced too. Let's join the family," they were jealous. They were jealous. I say that. And pandemic came. I had not heard hide or nothing from either one of my brothers because they came for my dad's funeral thinking they were going to inherit I don't know what. But for mom's funeral, neither one showed up.
Oh.
I know. So I was like, okay, there's got to be a reason. I tried to hunt him down to tell him mom had passed away. Nothing. I couldn't get a hold of him. In fact, my brother, my older brother, was had the pandemic, and he ended up in a coma in some state out away from here, and I didn't even know that that was happening. But the hospital called. Actually, no, the police showed up at my house. The police showed up at my house. They said we're looking for the next of kin of Jamie Mendieta, and I'm like, what? my husband was the one that tended to, because I had a broken foot at the time. He didn't want me to hear any of it, but he came in and he told me, and then I called the hospital because he gave us the name and number of the hospital, and I said, um, how's my brother? He's in a coma. He's not speaking. I said, well, get him a priest. Get him a priest. And this, I could not believe it came from me. Get him a priest, and because he's Catholic, and I don't know, but I want God to take care of him. He passed away. But the priest that was doing the last rites on him called me. And he said, what do you want to say to your brother? And I said, I love you and I forgive you. And that was it. I ended up putting him, they called me later and said, I said he was in the army, so he had an honorable discharge, or so I thought. That honorable discharge didn't happen. Whatever he did, I don't know what he did, but all I know is I had to find a way to bury him. Because of the angels that I've met along the way, I was able to recoup enough money to put him right next door to mom and dad. And that is like, I see now that God was having me put my family back together while I was getting put back together. And I appreciate families more than ever because of that. I wanted to get adopted when I was young because I knew that somewhere someone was going to love me, somebody was going to care for me. But now I see that it wasn't meant to be, because I needed to find out the value of what a family is and share it with the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so sorry that all has happened. And I again am just glad to see you and the space that you're in after, going through all that, and still wanting to just be that happy, inspiring, loving person. I'm sure is not an easy thing, but now it's just like, yeah, you see that, that is what, you like to do, and it makes you feel good. But I'm sure getting to that point probably was not easy, considering everything that you were dealing with and going through. And I want to thank you for coming on today and being open and sharing, you know your story, and just being that light for other people out there. So you know again, I know it's not easy sometimes to share, so I appreciate it. Like, I love your time, and your inspiration, your story, everything about you is very, very powerful, and I'm just grateful and thankful that you chose to come on my show and share that with me and my audience. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone that listens. And even if it doesn't affect you and you're having everything fine, share it. Share it with someone that needs to hear it. Share it with the world, because that's another thing. Just because we don't apply what we're looking at, or find the goodness in it and share it, it'll make the world a little more peaceful. I promise you that. It made my life peaceful.
Yeah, that is again very true. Yeah. Um, helping others and being able to be there and show them, different things, is very powerful, and it does make you feel good, and knowing that you were able to help somebody, and that's just what I think everyone should be doing. You know what I mean? Like, just do that, and you'll see how more, will come towards you, and the happiness and all that stuff. So I agree with that as well. Um, I don't think so, but if anyone, I've been trying to pay attention as much as I can, with the chat, but if anyone does have any questions for Marty, you can send them, to me, and I can get them answered for you. Or Marty, can you one more time just let the audience know how they can get in touch with you?
It's Marty Smith, Martie Smith. I'm on Facebook like that, and just DM me, or go to martymsmith.com, and you'll find all the links in there as well.
Perfect. Well, again, Marty, I want to thank you so much for coming on my show and just being, who you
Thank you for
are, and
having me.
sharing. Yes, you're very welcome. And I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Okie doke. You all take care. God bless. Bye bye.
You too, love. Bye. Good night. I'll see everyone maybe shortly. I hope everyone takes something away from this. And if it's not something that you can use yourself, at least maybe pass it on to someone that you know. So until next time, be safe, loving, and